Hello and welcome to the third public meeting for the South End Connector project. The purpose of the meeting tonight is to see the design and share your feedback for activating the South End Connector, which is a new shared use trail under I-787 in the South End. And so tonight, present at this meeting, we have the City of Albany with the Department of Planning and Development, Yasmin Robinson, the Deputy Planning Director, as well as Lauren Alpert. From Creighton Manning Engineering, we have Tony Christian. And then my name is Marie Law Adams from Landing Studio, and we are an urban design and architecture practice that specializes in improving infrastructure spaces like highway overpasses. And I'm joined tonight by Gavin Zeitz, a colleague from Landing Studio. And so I wanted to start by going over the agenda for tonight's meeting. The main purpose is to share a design presentation where we're going to begin with an overview of the project, and then we'll cover what we heard from the second public meeting and then how that informed the current design that we're going to show you tonight. After the design presentation, we're going to open up for your questions and comments, and then we'll close by looking at the next steps in the project schedule. So the goal of this community engagement process is to develop a design to activate the South End Connector Trail. This is the third and final public meeting in the process. In the very first public meeting in September of 2020, we listened to gather initial ideas and goals for the area. And then in the second meeting at the end of last year, we presented an initial design for the space and then received feedback on that design. And so tonight we're going to present a near final design for feedback and further refinement before we finalize the design. And so you can see how this fits into the overall project schedule on this slide here. We've already entered the design development phase of the project where we've started to work on the construction drawings. And our goal is to put the project out to bid for a contractor at the end of the summer so that we can start construction in the fall. Also, we put up the link here to the project website, which is southendconnector.weebly.com, so that you can follow any updates to the schedule online. And this is also where we'll be posting the presentation from tonight as well. And so to review the project area, the South End Connector Trail is highlighted in here in the turquoise line running underneath the I-787 overpass. The South End Connector links between the larger trail systems of the Heidelberg-Hudson Rail Trail to the south and the Mohawk-Hudson Bike Trail to the north. And the south is on this corner of the page and the north over here. You can see the Hudson River in the upper right-hand corner of the image on the top of the slide. And then the other side, you see the South End neighborhood with the Steamboat Square homes along Green Street, Giffen Memorial Elementary School, and then some of Pearl Street on the lower left-hand corner. And so just some basic context that we're thinking about with the project area is one, that it's very large. It's about 6 acres of space and almost 1/2 mile in length. And so one of the big challenges with the project is that we have a limited budget for this phase, and we need to be strategic then in terms of how we lay out the design to maximize impacts over such a large area. We also found that some of the project area, almost 2 acres, could actually support landscape. So these areas are not directly below the highway and have direct exposure to light and sun. And then we also looked at neighborhood connections and specifically how well the trail connects back to the sidewalks of Ferry Street, Rensselaer, Bassett, and 4th. And in all cases, we found that there were currently no pathway connections or crosswalks and curb cuts where you cross the street from the neighborhood to the trail. So our kind of big takeaway here is that the South End neighborhood connections to the trail itself could be improved with this project. And so all of these observations factored into the design that we presented at the previous public meeting in November, as well as a series of design goals that were generated from the first public meeting to guide the work that we're doing here. And so these included to reflect community, that the space should reflect a local South End community and their stories. It should create gathering spaces for events, and especially events that support neighborhood economic development and family activities. The space should be vibrant, and the design should bring color into the area. It should feel safe and connected and be easy to get to. And that it should be green, that we want to use landscape to bring in color and softness and also achieve environmental benefits like stormwater management and improved air quality. And so as a reminder, if you didn't see the presentation from last November, we used this analogy of a charm bracelet to think about the trail itself like the chain of a charm, or the chain of a bracelet that links together a series of charms, which correlate with the street ends, or the street connections to the neighborhood: Ferry, Rensselaer, Bassett, and Fourth. And so this idea is that there could be a series of localized, concentrated improvements where each of those neighborhood streets connect to the trail, creating an opportunity to make better connections, also create spaces for the community where they are, gathering spaces, make the space more vibrant and colorful and green, especially in those areas. So using the area where Ferry Streets connects to the trail as an example, we created these before and after views to show what the space could look like. And so this is a picture of what the trail looks like basically today at Ferry Street. And then this is what it could look like with the design with landscaping between the rampways, a paved plaza area for gathering, and then wayfinding graphics to announce that it's Ferry Street, and mural art on the columns, which you can kind of see here. And then we also looked at how the space would transform at night with trail lighting, which you can see on these posts, as well as colored lighting that would illuminate the overpass above. And then we'll just quickly go through each of the different plans of those street areas. At Ferry Street, the plan included a little bicycle track area for kids, the landscaping that I mentioned between the rampways, a new plaza with furniture for seating, and then a crosswalk and curb cut connection to link back to Ferry Street across Church Street. At Rensselaer, we were looking at an idea of introducing outdoor gym equipment to complement the use of the trail, and then also some seating, which you see here, along with another curb cut, curb ramp, and crosswalk to connect back to Rensselaer Street here. And then at Bassett, there was actually a lot of room next to the path. And so the plan showed a recreation space, like a basketball shoot around area with some seating that you see here, as well as the landscape area, and then connection back to the trail. And then finally at 4th Avenue, we showed the idea of a flexible plaza with seating and a space for food trucks to support local events and businesses, in addition to the landscaping that you see around the edges. And so now what I'll do is shift over to the design updates that we've made since the last time that we presented in November. And all of the changes that we've made since then are based on two things primarily. One is the feedback on the design that we got during the second meeting in November. And then the second is from doing a cost estimate and getting a better sense of what we could afford to do with this project budget and in this phase, which the budget itself is limited around $400,000. So we really have to be strategic about how we're using all of that money. For the second public meeting, we'll start with what we heard in the breakout room conversations that we had then. The first question that we asked is, what do you like about the design? And the top response that we heard was public art. And then the second was recreation areas. And then the third was the focus on youth and family activities. And then the second question we asked is, what is missing from the design? And the top three responses that we heard were water fountains and bathrooms. And then there were actually several mentions of chessboards as a nice way to kind of passively enjoy the space. So unfortunately, while we understand the benefits of having drinking fountains and bathrooms along the trail, we did conclude after looking at this that it's not something we could accommodate in this project phase because of the limited budget, and then still be able to achieve a lot of those design goals to create a more active and vibrant and connected space along the trail. And then the third question that we asked during that meeting was, what are your highest priorities for the space? And what we heard most commonly was that there was a high priority for gathering space. And then secondly, there was a tie between lighting and security and safety. And then third, a tie between accessibility and wayfinding. So we were conscious of including all of these priorities in the design, which is fully wheelchair accessible and features prominent wayfinding signage, as well as consistent lighting to help with a sense of safety and security on the trail. And so at this time, we started to work through a cost estimate also to see how much we could afford in the project. And we're confronted with the reality that we were already a little bit over budget with what we showed during the second public meeting. And so we needed to kind of bring it back a little bit. So this is the plan as it stood after that second public meeting. And we then tried to be creative about how we were using the resources in the project and tested out shuffling around some of the proposed improvements and consolidating some portions of the design so that we could still get everything that we heard that people wanted to see in the project. So specifically, we looked closer at the Rensselaer Charm area here with the fitness stations that I showed just a second ago. And we realized that this was really the narrowest space along the trail where you're really pushed up between Church Street and the edge of the railroad on the one side. So it's not like the greatest space along the trail. So we thought, well, why don't we take those activities, the kind of fitness stations, and shift them over to Ferry Street where there's a little bit more room to accommodate them. And then take the kids' bicycle track idea from Ferry Street and move that all the way down to 4th Street. Where there was the flexible food truck space. And the idea with that is that a kids track is really mainly painting, striping on the ground. And that can really also serve as a vending space during special events so that we get the opportunity for both kinds of activities in that area at 4th Street, but done in the same space so that there's savings in cost. And then we also spent a lot of time in the interim evaluating lighting on the trail and found that the budget for this project couldn't accommodate the addition of programmable colored lighting, but regular trail pole lighting will be installed soon as part of a separate project by the city, which is going to help to kind of achieve that sense of safety that was mentioned from consistent nighttime lighting. So you can see an image of the light pole type on the upper right-hand image of this slide here. And the red dots represent all of the different lights. So it's a really consistent illumination along the whole length of the trail. And so now we're going to just go into some more detail on the current design. You'll see in the plans that there are landscape zones near each of the charm areas that help to both soften the space and also reduce hot summer temperatures as well as help with stormwater management. So we've proposed tree species in all of these areas that are urban tolerant and which have a yellow fall foliage to bring a kind of bright and unifying color to the area. And then in the planting areas on the ground, we're proposing a seeded wildflower meadow as well that'll bring some pops of color into the space with the flowers, and will also encourage pollinators like birds and bees that are important to the health of the local ecosystem. And so now we'll just go into each of the updated plans for the different charm areas, starting with Ferry Street. And so as I mentioned, this area features an outdoor gym fitness area as its sort of special amenity, and then shares with the other charms the trail lighting that you see along the edges, landscaping that you can see with these big green zones, and then the wayfinding graphics both on the trail and on the piers alongside the space, as well as a new crosswalk and curb ramp and path connection to the trail here. And so if you look in more detail at the plan, you can see that the fitness area would have a poured rubber surfacing for safety as well as comfort for exercising and stretching. And then a variety of different fitness stations that you see kind of around the perimeter of this area. And then a bike rack for folks who are stopping on their way along the trail to do some exercise. And so on this slide, we have pictures of the different fitness equipment that we're proposing for the space. And we're just trying to include a variety of different muscle groups across all of the elements to appeal to a wide variety of different users. And then if we move over to Rensselaer Street, as I mentioned, this area mainly features a new connection with a crosswalk and curb ramp and path extension. So it just connects the sidewalk and to the South End Connector Trail here, along with the wayfinding graphics on the trail itself, as well as the columns to kind of announce the space and help with wayfinding and orientation. And then at Bassett Street, we ran forward with the idea of creating a multi-sport recreation space and tried to make it suit as wide of an audience and age range as possible by introducing what you can see here, soccer markings and goals into the backstop for the basketball area, as well as 4 different basketball hoops that are at different heights to cater to different age groups. And so you can see that in this zoomed in view here that we have a 10-foot, 9-foot, 8-foot, and 6-foot basketball hoop for, you know, adults all the way to little kids to practice out here. And then we also have wheelchair accessible picnic tables with chessboards, and then bike tracks that are close to the trail connection here to park your bike. And then finally at the 4th Avenue Charm, we looked at combining the idea of a kids track and recreation activities with flexible event space for local businesses and food trucks, along with the other regular elements that you see on the rest of the charms, like the trail lighting that you can kind of see along here, the tree and meadow area here, and then the wayfinding graphics to announce this, this place. And then zooming in on this one, you can see the multiple track loops kind of going around through here and here that could support kids on bikes or scooters. And then in between those track areas or inside of the loops, we're showing activity zones that have both wheelchair accessible picnic table seating and games like Foursquare and hopscotch and tic-tac-toe. And you can also see 4 sort of designated food truck parking spots here, which was important just because commercial uses are actually confined to city property within this project area because of some restrictions that the DOT has on the uses of their property. So this marking here just helps show vendors where they can set up and within this area. So that wraps up our update on the current design. On the southendconnector.weebly.com website, there is a place where you can enter any comments or questions on the design. We'd be very happy to hear from you. We're wrapping up the design process in the next month or so, and we'll be putting together the drawings to bid the project. So entering your comments and questions, it's a great time to do that now. And as I mentioned before, we're currently in that stage where we're wrapping up the community engagement and design process before we go into permitting and bidding in order to get to construction by the fall. And so again, the southendconnector.weebly.com website is a good place to go for updates on the project. And then if you want to directly email any comments or questions, you can send them to dpd@albanyny.gov. Thank you very much.